Well, today we're cracking open a real classic case file. We're heading deep into Victorian London, a place, obsessed with reputation, absolutely terrified of secrets.
That's right. And our mission isn't just retelling a famous story. We're actually tracing the investigation, following the footsteps of the one person determined enough to find the truth, Mr. Gabriel John Utterson, the lawyer.
Yeah, Utterson. He's our man on the ground here. And he's fascinating in himself, isn't he? Sort of the perfect guide for this murky world.
Absolutely. He really embodies the contradictions of that whole era. He's like our original skeptical investigator. The sources paint him as having this rugged countenance, describes him as cold, scanty, and embarrassed in discourse.
Right, not exactly Mr. Charisma.
Not at all. And get this, he's apparently so self-disciplined he drinks gin specifically to mortify a taste for vintages, just to keep himself in check.
Wow, that tells you a lot. That austerity, that self-control, it's key to him. But then there's this other side, right? This approved tolerance for others.
Exactly. It's like the text says, he adopts Cain's heresy. Basically, he lets people go to ruin in their own way. He doesn't interfere, doesn't judge.
And that's crucial because that lack of judgment, that's what makes him the last port of call for downgoing men in London, the guy you turn to when everything's fallen apart.
Which is precisely why Dr. Jekyll ends up confiding in him, or at least why Utterson gets pulled into Jekyll's orbit.
So how does this whole investigation actually kick off? Where does Utterson start?
It starts almost immediately with this really stark visual, a contrast in architecture.
Yeah.
Got the main London streets, all respectable, thriving, freshly painted shutters, polished brass, that sort of thing. And then, bam, suddenly there's this sinister block of building. It just jumps out at you, a signal that something's deeply wrong.
It's described as a real blight, isn't it? The side door, particularly, prolonged and sordid negligence.
That's the phrase. No bell, no knocker, paint peeling off. School kids have apparently been using the molding to sharpen their knives. Just total abandonment.
Right there in the middle of all this, careful respectability.
Yeah.
And this door, this neglected entrance, it turns out to be the key to the whole thing.
Exactly. It's the secret way in.
So Utterson doesn't figure this out alone initially, does he? His first clue comes from someone else.
Right. It comes during one of his usual Sunday walks. He's with his relative, Mr. Richard Enfield. Enfield's described as a bit of a man about town, the kind who hears all the gossip.
Oh, okay.
And as they happen to walk past this very door, Enfield stops. He points it out and tells Utterson this very odd story.
And this story, it really sets the tone, doesn't it? The sheer horror of what's to come.
It absolutely does. Enfield recounts being out late, maybe 3 in the morning, on a black winter night. He sees 2 figures. One's a small, kind of unpleasant-looking man, and the other's a young girl, maybe 8 or 10, running as fast as she can.
And they collide at a corner. An accident, you'd think.
Exactly. But it's what happens next. The little man, who we later learn is Mr. Hyde, doesn't stop, doesn't even hesitate. He just trampled calmly over the child's body and left her screaming on the ground.
Calmly. That's the word that sticks with you.
It's chilling. Enfield says it wasn't like a man's reaction at all. It was like some damn juggernaut. Just this unstoppable, unfeeling force.
And the reaction of the people who saw it, that's almost as telling.
Oh, definitely. A crowd gathers instantly. The girl's family, passersby, and even a doctor, an apothecary, described as usually having the emotions of a bagpipe. Pretty stoic guy.
Huh. Right.
But even he turned sick and white with the desire to kill him. Hyde. There was this collective, visceral loathing. It wasn't just the act. It was something about Hyde himself that provoked this immediate murderous rage in everyone.
This shared, almost primal disgust. It's a recurring theme with Hyde, isn't it?
It is. It's central. So the crowd corners Hyde. They can't exactly beat him up, but they can threaten him with scandal, the ultimate Victorian nightmare. Make his name stink from one end of London to the other.
So he agrees to pay. To hush it up.
Yeah, £100.
Yeah.
A significant sum. And here's the really strange part, the bit that connects to the door. Hyde doesn't have the cash on him. He uses a key, unlocks that neglected door, and disappears inside.
Into the sinister block of building.
Exactly. He comes back out with £10 in gold and a check for the remaining 90, drawn on Coutts Bank, payable to bearer.
Okay, so far, so. Maybe blackmail. Or just a weird guy paying compensation. But the signature is the twist.
That's it. The check is signed with a very well-known, highly respected name, someone Enfield knows is the absolute pink of the proprieties.
Which Utterson, hearing this, immediately latches onto it, because how does a check from Mr. Respectable end up in the hands of this brute coming out of that door at 4 in the morning?
Right. Enfield says they were suspicious it was a forgery. It had to be, right? But they waited with Hyde until the banks opened at 10, cashed the check themselves, and it was genuine.
Wow. So the respectable man is involved, which leads Enfield to 2 possibilities.
Either the signer is being blackmailed over some dark secret, hence Enfield calling the place Blackmail House in his mind.
Or he's actually complicit, helping this Hyde character.
Exactly, which is horrifying in its own way. Utterson is clearly disturbed by all this. He presses Enfield. What wasn't that his name?
Edward Hyde.
Edward Hyde. But then Utterson asks the obvious next question, what did he look like? And Enfield just struggles.
He can't quite pin it down, can he?
No. He says Hyde is not easy to describe. There's this strong feeling of deformity, but he can't specify what it is. He just concludes Hyde is downright detestable.
That unexpressed deformity, it suggests the wrongness isn't just physical or moral, it's fundamental. Like he's badly put together on some essential level.
Precisely. An offense against nature itself.
Yeah.
And that feeling is something Utterson will soon experience firsthand. #tag2, the threat in the will, and the search for Hyde.
So hearing the name Hyde and connecting it to this incident and the genuine check that rings a massive alarm bell for Utterson, doesn't it? Because it's something he already knows.
A huge alarm bell. He goes straight home, unlocks his safe, and pulls out a document he's held for years. Dr. Henry Jekyll's will.
Ah, the will. This has been bothering him for a while already.
Deeply bothering him. He'd previously dismissed it as just, well, madness on Jekyll's part. But now it seems much more sinister.
What exactly did it say again? It was pretty unusual for a will.
Highly unusual. It stipulated that if Dr. Jekyll died, or, and this is the really weird part, in the case of his disappearance or unexplained absence for any period exceeding 3 calendar months, everything, all his possessions, would pass immediately to one Edward Hyde.
His friend and benefactor, Edward Hyde. Benefactor.
I know, the wording is just bizarre. And now Utterson knows who Hyde is, this violent, detestable creature from Enfield's story.
So his fear shifts, right? It's not just that Jekyll is eccentric or mad.
No, now he fears its disgrace. Or worse, he starts thinking Hyde might not wait for Jekyll to die or disappear naturally. Hyde might expedite things, murder him to inherit.
Okay, so Utterson needs more information. He needs context about Jekyll's life, about this Hyde connection. Where does he go?
He goes to see Dr. Lanyon, Hasty Lanyon, another old friend, shared by both Utterson and Jekyll. Lanyon's described as the complete opposite of Jekyll in some ways. Hearty, healthy, dapper, red-faced gentleman. Sort of the picture of robust common sense.
The establishment doctor.
Exactly. But the moment Utterson brings up Jekyll, Lanyon's whole demeanor changes. He gets angry, flushes purple.
Why? What's the beef there?
Turns out Lanyon and Jekyll had a major falling out years ago over science. Lanyon says he sees very little of Jekyll now because Jekyll got involved in what Lanyon calls unscientific balderdash.
Ah, the scientific disagreement. This is important later, right?
Crucial. Lanyon represents mainstream materialistic Victorian science. Tangible stuff. Jekyll apparently started dabbling in things Lanyon considered, well, out there, too fanciful, mystic and transcendental.
Exploring the nature of man, the soul, that kind of thing.
That seems to be the implication. And for Lanyon, that was just unacceptable. An intellectual and maybe even moral betrayal of proper science?
So Lanyon is no help regarding Hyde?
None at all. He confirms he's never even heard the name Edward Hyde, which leaves Utterson even more worried. If Jekyll's oldest friends don't know Hyde, who the devil is he? The murder theory looks more likely.
So Utterson takes matters into his own hands. He decides he has to see this Hyde for himself.
He does. He becomes quite obsessed, actually. Starts haunting that by street, watching the door day and night, rain or shine. This is where he has that great line. If you be Mr. Hyde, I shall be Mr. Seek.
He's turning from passive observer into active hunter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His professional detachment is gone. This is personal now. He needs to see the face of the man who holds such power over his friend.
And eventually.
He does.
Eventually, yes. One night, he sees a small, plainly dressed figure approaching the door. It fits the description. Utterson steps out and confronts him. Mr. Hyde, I think.
How does Hyde react? With a sort of animalistic sound. A hissing intake of the breath, like a startled snake. But then he recovers, asks Utterson how he knew him. Coldly defiant.
And Utterson gets a good look at him. What's his impression?
It echoes Enfield's, but it's stronger. He notes the paleness, the dwarfish stature, the displeasing smile. But more than that, it's a feeling. Sense of deformity, yes, but also something broken, wrong. He feels disgust, loathing, and fear.
And he famously thinks he reads Satan's signature on Hyde's face.
He does. He finds Hyde hardly human. He uses the word troglodytic, like a caveman, something primitive, undeveloped. Again, this idea that Hyde isn't fully formed or represents something base and ancient.
Does Hyde give anything away?
He does give Utterson his address in Soho, defensively, when Utterson presses him. But the crucial confirmation comes as Hyde ends the conversation.
The key.
The key. Utterson watches as Hyde pulls out a key, unlocks the neglected door, and lets himself into the building that serves as the laboratory entrance to Dr. Jekyll's respectable house.
That clinches the connection. It's not just a random association. Hyde has free access.
Total access. Utterson is deeply troubled. He immediately goes around the block to Jekyll's main entrance, the respectable front door. Knocks, gets let in by Poole, the butler.
Poole. He's a key witness later on. What does he tell Utterson now?
Poole confirms everything Utterson fears. Yes, Mr. Hyde has a key. Yes, all the servants have orders to obey him. But interestingly, they barely see Hyde on the main house side. He mostly comes and goes by the laboratory.
Keeping to the shadows, maintaining that separation.
Exactly. Utterson leaves, his mind reeling. He's now convinced Jekyll is entangled in some old sin, some concealed disgrace, and Hyde is exploiting it. Maybe blackmail, maybe worse. He feels Jekyll is chained to this creature.
So he decides he has to talk to Jekyll directly, confront him.
He does. He waits for an opportunity, which comes a couple of weeks later at a dinner party Jekyll hosts. Jekyll is described here as looking every bit the successful gentleman. A large, well-made, smooth-faced man of 50. Confident, sociable.
But Utterson brings up the will. And Hyde.
And the change is instantaneous. Jekyll goes pale to the very lips. His eyes darken. Pure panic.
He tries to brush it off, though, right? Reassure Utterson.
He tries. He insists it's a very strange situation, a private matter. He claims he can be rid of Hyde the moment I choose. He sounds desperate, trying to maintain control or the appearance of it.
But he knows Utterson isn't buying it.
No. And so Jekyll does something crucial. He makes Utterson promise, a solemn promise, that if or when Jekyll is gone, Utterson will help Hyde, ensure he gets his rights according to the will.
And Utterson, being Utterson loyal, bound by his word, even when he hates it.
He agrees, reluctantly, filled with foreboding, but he gives his promise, which of course just deepens his involvement and his dread.
So after that confrontation, things seem to quiet down for a while.
Yeah, almost a year passes. Utterson is still worried, but there are no new incidents. Jekyll seems to be behaving himself, and then suddenly everything explodes.
The Carew murder.
The Carew murder. October. London is absolutely startled by a crime of singular ferocity. Sir Danvers Carew, a well-respected MP, client of Utterson's actually, is brutally murdered in the street.
And there's a witness, right? A very dramatic account.
Incredibly dramatic. A maidservant living near the river, she couldn't sleep, went to her window. It was a clear night, full moon lighting up the lane outside. She felt quite romantic, apparently, watching the scene.
Until she saw the two men.
Exactly. She sees an older man, beautiful, she says, with white hair that's Carew walking along. He meets a much smaller man, who she instantly recognizes as Mr. Hyde, who had visited her master once and whom she hated on sight.
Hyde again, so she knew him.
She knew him by sight and had taken an instant dislike to him. Carew apparently addressed Hyde politely, maybe asking for directions. Hyde was carrying a heavy cane, sort of playing with it, and then, just snap, Hyde suddenly bursts out in a great flame of anger, stamping his foot, brandishing the cane like a madman. And then he attacks Carew.
How does she describe the attack?
With ape-like fury. That phrase stands out. He clubs Sir Danvers to the ground and then jumps on him, trampling him underfoot, raining down blows. It was so savage, so insane, the maid just fainted.
Understandable. Just pure frenzied violence.
Utterly senseless. When she came to, Hyde was gone, and Carew's body was lying in the middle of the lane. She screamed for the police.
What did the police find?
They found the body incredibly mangled, just as she described. And the murder weapon, or half of it, the heavy cane had actually broken in two during the assault.
And crucially, they found something on the body.
Yes. A purse and gold watch were still there, so it wasn't robbery. But there was a sealed and stamped envelope, addressed to Mr. Utterson.
Which brings him directly into the official investigation.
Right into the heart of it. The police contact him in the morning. He identifies the body as Sir Danvers Carew. Then the police inspector, Newcomen, shows him the broken half of the cane.
And Utterson recognizes it.
Instantly. His blood runs cold. He recognizes it as a cane he himself had given to Henry Jekyll years before.
Oh man, the murder weapon belonged to Jekyll. This is bad. Really bad.
It's devastating. Utterson knows immediately what this implies. He tells the inspector he believes he knows where the other half might be and who the murderer is. He offers to lead them to Hyde's address in Soho, the one Hyde gave him during their encounter.
So they head to Soho. What's the scene like there?
It adds to the whole grim atmosphere. They go through this thick, swirling London fog, like chocolate-colored. Soho itself is described as dismal, a district of some city in a nightmare. Muddy streets, shady characters, slatternly passengers, a suitably wretched place for Hyde's hideout.
And they find his rooms.
They do. The door's answered by an old woman, Hyde's landlady or housekeeper. She's got this ivory face and an evil face smoothed by hypocrisy. She actually seems pleased, almost overjoyed, when she hears that Hyde is in trouble with the police.
Charming. Does she know anything useful?
She confirms his movements were erratic, often out late. She says he'd come in very late the night before, seemed agitated, and left again less than an hour later. She hasn't seen him since. But she lets them into his rooms.
What do they find inside? Evidence.
Yes. The rooms themselves are a surprise, furnished with luxury and good taste. Jekyll's influence, presumably. But they've clearly been ransacked recently. Papers burned in the fireplace, drawers pulled out, clothes strewn everywhere.
Like he grabbed what he needed and fled.
Exactly. And then they find the clinchers. First, among the ashes in the hearth, they find the stub end of a checkbook. A green checkbook.
Not Jekyll's checkbook. Hyde's own account.
Right. Showing he had his own financial life, separate from Jekyll. And then, the undeniable proof, behind the door they find the other half of the broken cane, the murder weapon.
Case closed, pretty much. Inspector Newcomen must have been pleased.
Very pleased. He says, I have him in my hand. He seems totally confident they'll catch Hyde quickly, sends out descriptions, offers a reward.
They don't catch him, do they?
No. Hyde seems to vanish off the face of the earth. No family, no traceable history, and crucially, no photograph exists. The only descriptions are from people like Enfield and Utterson, focusing on that strange, unnameable feeling of deformity. He's like a phantom. #Tag5A. The letter and the disturbing discovery. The intellectual puzzle.
So Hyde has vanished. The police are hunting them. Where does Utterson go next? He must be thinking about Jekyll.
Straight to Jekyll. He goes to the house, but bypasses the front door this time, goes right around to the laboratory entrance. He finds Jekyll inside the cabinet room, the private study above the lab.
How is Jekyll?
He looks terrible, deathly sick. He doesn't rise to meet Utterson, just holds out a cold hand. He looks utterly broken.
Does he confess? Does he say what happened?
Not directly, but he swears to God repeatedly that he is done with Hyde, that he'll never set eyes on him again. He assures Utterson Hyde is safe. He is quite safe, meaning he's escaped, he won't be caught.
Is Jekyll worried about Hyde? Or himself?
Mostly himself. His biggest fear now seems to be his own character being dragged into the scandal. He asks Utterson if he thinks he, Jekyll, could be suspected of hiding Hyde.
And then he produces something, doesn't he? The letter.
Yes. He shows Utterson a letter, supposedly just arrived, handwritten and signed, Edward Hyde. The letter basically says Hyde has found a safe way to escape and that Jekyll shouldn't worry about him anymore as he doesn't deserve Jekyll's kindness.
Seems convenient. Does Utterson buy it?
Initially, maybe a flicker of relief. It seems to fit the blackmail theory. Hyde flees, releases Jekyll. But Utterson is a lawyer. He's methodical. He notices the handwriting, asks Jekyll if he still has the envelope it came in.
Does he?
No. Jekyll claims he burned it. Carelessly, he says. Alarm bells start ringing again for Utterson. Something feels off.
So he asks a practical question.
He does. As he's leaving, he bumps into Poole, the butler, in the hall outside the lab building. He casually asks Poole what sort of messenger brought the letter that morning.
And Poole says?
Poole is adamant. No letters were delivered that day, except by the regular postman. And those were just circulars, advertisements. Nothing hand-delivered.
Oh. So the letter didn't arrive by messenger?
It couldn't have. Which means either it came through the laboratory door, the door only Jekyll and Hyde used, or, even worse.
It was written inside the cabinet by Jekyll himself.
Exactly. The floor drops out from under Utterson. This isn't just about sheltering a criminal anymore. This feels like active deception. Forgery, even. This shifts the whole thing from a crime investigation into a deeply unsettling intellectual puzzle.
What does he do? He can't just accuse Jekyll.
No, he's too cautious for that. But he has the letter. He takes it back to his office. And he has an idea. He needs an expert opinion on the handwriting. But subtly.
Enter Mr. Guest.
Mr. Guest, his head clerk. Utterson trusts him completely. Guest is also, conveniently, a huge enthusiast of handwriting analysis, a real expert.
So Utterson sets it up carefully.
Very carefully. He's chatting with Guest about the Carew murder, which is all over the news. Casually, he shows Guest the Hyde letter, calling it a sad curiosity, a murderer's autograph.
Just asking for his opinion on the character revealed by the script, maybe?
Something like that. While Guest is looking at the Hyde letter, almost as if by chance, a servant comes in with a dinner invitation for Utterson from Dr. Jekyll.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Guest picks up the invitation, looks from one note to the other. He's immediately struck by something.
The similarity.
The similarity. He tells Utterson it's a rather singular resemblance. He lays them side by side and points it out. The two hands, Jekyll's and Hyde's, are, in many points, identical, only differently sloped.
Identical, only slanted differently.
That's the chilling phrase. The underlying structure, the character of the writing is the same. One is upright, one is sloped, but they were written by the same person.
So Jekyll forged the letter to cover for Hyde.
That's the inescapable conclusion Utterson reaches. He locks the Hyde letter away in his safe that night, horrified. His internal monologue is stark. Henry Jekyll forged for a murderer. This deepens the mystery immensely. Why would Jekyll risk everything to protect this monster? What is the real connection here? Hashtag Tag V, the second wave of horror, and the death of Lanyon, the collapse of the reputable.
Okay, so Jekyll forged the letter, Hyde is gone, the murder investigation stalls. What happens next? Does Jekyll go back to normal?
For a while, yes, surprisingly. For about 2 months after the murder and Hyde's disappearance, Jekyll comes out of his shell completely. He's described as being more social than ever, renewing friendships, doing charity work. He seems to have this inward consciousness of service, like he's trying to make amends, maybe. He seems genuinely at peace.
A reprieve, then, but it doesn't last.
No. Just as suddenly as he reappeared, he vanishes again. The door to his house shuts. He refuses visitors. Complete seclusion, back in the laboratory.
Utterson must be concerned. Does he try to see him?
He tries repeatedly, but he's always turned away. Poole says the doctor is confined to the house, mostly to the cabinet above the lab, and won't see anyone.
So Utterson thinks, okay, maybe Lanyon knows something.
Right. He decides to visit their other old friend, Dr. Lanyon, hoping for some insight into Jekyll's relapse. But when he gets there, he's absolutely shocked by what he finds.
What's wrong with Lanyon?
Lanyon looks like a dying man. Utterson says he had his death warrant written legibly upon his face. The rosy, hearty doctor is gone. He's pale, thin, balding rapidly, looks physically wasted. But it's more than physical illness.
It's mental, psychological.
Definitely. There's a deep-seated terror of the mind in his eyes. Lanyon himself admits it. He says he's had a shock, something profound, and he expects to die very soon. He calls himself a doomed man.
A shock related to Jekyll.
Utterson asks about Jekyll, and Lanyon's reaction is violent. His face changes. He holds up a trembling hand. He absolutely refuses to discuss Jekyll. Says he wishes to see or hear no more of Dr. Jekyll. He goes so far as to say, I regard him as dead.
Wow. Not just a scientific disagreement anymore. This is total severance. Something terrible happened between them.
Something that shattered Lanyon's world. He offers no explanation, just forbids the topic. Utterson leaves, deeply disturbed by this second mystery layered onto the first.
Does he try to contact Jekyll after this?
He writes Jekyll a letter, asking about the break with Lanyon and his own seclusion. Jekyll writes back, but the reply is deeply distressing.
What does it say?
It's full of despair. Jekyll confirms the breach with Lanyon is permanent. He talks about living in extreme seclusion because he's brought upon himself a punishment and a danger that I cannot name. It's incredibly dark.
He sounds trapped, guilty.
Terribly guilty. He ends with this line, if I am the chief of sinners, I am the chief of sufferers also. He essentially begs Utterson to leave him alone in his self-imposed prison.
So Lanyon is dying, Jekyll is hiding. What happens to Lanyon?
He fades quickly. Within a fortnight of Utterson's visit, Dr. Lanyon dies.
And does he leave anything for Utterson? Any clue?
Yes. The night after the funeral, Utterson receives an envelope addressed to him in Lanyon's handwriting. Inside, he finds another sealed envelope.
Okay.
And this inner envelope has very specific instructions written on it. Private, for the hands of G.G. Utterson alone, and in case of his predeceased to be destroyed unread. And then the chilling part. Not to be opened till the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll.
Disappearance. That word again. The same word from Jekyll's will, now used by Lanyon.
Exactly. Utterson must have felt a cold dread. It confirms Lanyon knew something about the strange condition governing Jekyll's life, and it was tied to this possibility of just vanishing. And whatever Lanyon knew, it killed him.
But Utterson honors the instructions, right? He doesn't open it yet.
No. His professional honor, his loyalty wouldn't let him. He locks the second packet away in his safe, next to Jekyll's will, waiting for the condition death or disappearance to be met. The suspense is just building and building.
And then there's one more really unsettling glimpse of Jekyll before the end.
The incident at the window. It's incredibly creepy.
Ah.
Utterson is out for his Sunday walk again, this time with Enfield, the same man from the first story. They happen to be walking down that by street again.
Past the infamous door.
Past the door. Enfield points up, noting it's connected to Jekyll's house. And as they look up, they see Jekyll himself sitting at one of the upper windows of the laboratory building.
What does he look like?
Like a prisoner. Taking the air with an infinite sadness, like some disconsolate prisoner. Utterson calls out to him, suggests he come down and join them for a walk.
Does Jekyll respond?
He does, sadly. Says he'd like to, but it is quite impossible. I dare not. He tries to smile, tries to engage in conversation from the window.
But then,
mid-sentence, the smile is struck out of his face. It's replaced by an expression of such abject terror and despair as froze the very blood of the two gentlemen below. Just pure, unadulterated horror washes over him.
And he slams the window shut.
Instantly. The window is thrust down, and the figure vanishes. Utterson and Enfield are just stunned. They walk away in complete silence, utterly horrified by what they just witnessed. That glimpse of raw terror confirms whatever Jekyll is battling. It's monstrous, and it's winning. So after that window incident, the tension must be unbearable. How does the final night unfold? It kicks off dramatically. One wild, cold, windy night in March, Utterson is sitting by his fire when Poole, Jekyll's butler, shows up at his door, unannounced, looking absolutely terrified.
Poole,
Yeah.
the usually composed butler.
Yes, he's pale. His manner's completely changed. He basically blurts out, "I believe there has been foul play." He begs Utterson to come back with him to Jekyll's house immediately. He says he can bear it no more.
Foul play. What does he suspect?
He doesn't say exactly, not yet, but when Utterson gets to Jekyll's house, the atmosphere confirms Poole's terror. The entire staff maids, footmen, cook, they're all huddled together in the main hall near the fire, like a flock of sheep, too scared to even be in their usual parts of the house.
Something is deeply wrong in the laboratory building.
That's where Poole leads Utterson. Through the back garden to the lab. Poole explains what's been happening for the last week or so.
Which is?
The person locked inside the cabinet room, the study above the lab, has been crying out constantly for a specific drug, a type of salt, communicating only through notes pushed under the door or sometimes calling out.
Jekyll needing medicine.
That's what Utterson suggests. Maybe Jekyll has some illness that changes his voice and appearance. But Poole is insistent. The person inside has been sending Poole all over London to every chemist imaginable, trying to find this particular salt.
And?
Every sample Poole brings back is rejected, thrown down onto the stairs with a note saying it's not pure. The person inside is getting increasingly desperate. One of the notes Utterson sees, scrawled on paper in what looks like Jekyll's hand, ends with this frantic plea, "For God's sake, find me some of the old."
The old stuff, meaning the original batch he used.
That seems to be the implication. Poole is convinced the person inside is not Dr. Jekyll. He says the voice is different, the behavior is different. And he reveals something crucial.
What's that?
He tells Utterson he caught a glimpse of the figure inside, just for a second, a few days ago, when it darted out of the cabinet into the lab corridor. Poole asks Utterson, "If that was my master, why had he a mask upon his face?"
A mask?
Yes, Poole thinks it was a mask, but the way he describes the figure, so startling and shocking. It makes Utterson wonder. Poole continues, "If it was my master, why did he cry out like a rat and run from me?"
A rat? That's dehumanizing.
It is. And then Poole delivers the most damning observation. "My master is a tall, fine build of a man, and this was more of a dwarf."
Smaller. Like Hyde.
Exactly like Hyde.
Huh.
Poole is now certain. 8 days ago, he heard his master cry out Jekyll's name in distress, and since then, only this other, smaller figure has been inside. He believes Hyde murdered Jekyll weeks ago and is now trapped in the cabinet, impersonating the doctor while trying to get some drug.
Okay, so Utterson has to accept this now. Hyde is in there. Jekyll is likely dead.
He accepts it. The evidence is overwhelming. Poole's terror, the change in voice and stature, the desperate need for the drug, the weeping sounds Poole heard coming from the room.
Weeping sounds.
Yeah, Poole mentions hearing the figure inside weeping like a woman or a lost soul. It adds this layer of strange pathos to the horror. Utterson realizes they have to break down the door, for Jekyll's sake, if he's alive, or to apprehend his murderer if he's dead.
So they prepare to force entry.
They do. Utterson feels it's his duty. He tells Poole to grab an axe from the surgical theater while he takes the fireplace poker. They agree Utterson will give the person inside one last chance to open up, then Poole will smash the door down.
The final confrontation.
Yes. They stand outside the cabinet door. They can hear someone pacing inside, light, odd footsteps, not Jekyll's heavy tread. Utterson calls out loudly, "Jekyll, I demand to see you."
What's the response from inside?
A voice pleads back, "Utterson, for God's sakes, have mercy."
But Utterson recognizes it.
Instantly, he cries out, "Ah, that's not Jekyll's voice, it's Hyde's." He orders Poole, "Down with the door."
And Poole uses the axe.
He does. The wood splinters. From inside comes this dismal screech as of mere animal terror, like a trapped beast. 5 blows and the lock bursts. The door falls inward.
What do they find inside?
The room is quiet. Fire burning, pea things laid out, papers neatly arranged on the business table. Everything seems normal except on the floor, in the middle of the room, lies a body.
Jekyll. Or Hyde.
It's Hyde. Dressed in clothes that are far too large for him, clearly Jekyll's clothes. The body is twitching slightly, still warm, but life is gone. In his clenched fist, there's a crushed glass vial.
Suicide.
Looks like it. The air smells strongly of Colonel Cyanide or prussic acid. Utterson identifies him as Hyde, a self-destroyer.
But where is Jekyll?
That's the question. They search the entire cabinet, the laboratory, the cellar. Nothing. No sign of Jekyll, dead or alive. No hidden passage. No way he could have escaped after Hyde died. It's as if he just evaporated.
Leaving only Hyde's body behind.
And a few things on his business table. A large envelope addressed to Utterson. Inside, several documents. One is a new will, hastily written, dated that day, leaving everything not to Hyde, but to Utterson himself.
Replacing the old will.
Exactly. And alongside it, a lengthy written confession from Henry Jekyll. And finally, there's also the sealed letter from the now-deceased Lanyon, which Utterson had locked away. The condition Jekyll's disappearance or death has clearly been met. Utterson decides it's finally time to read both accounts and understand the whole truth.
So Utterson finally has the pieces. He starts with Lanyon's narrative, right? The letter Lanyon left him before he died.
Yes, he reads Lanyon's account first. It details the events of a specific night, January 9th. It starts with Lanyon receiving an incredibly urgent, almost hysterical letter from Jekyll.
The letter asking for that bizarre favor.
Exactly. Jekyll pleaded with Lanyon, by their old friendship, to cancel everything, go to Jekyll's house, break into his private cabinet if necessary, and retrieve a specific drawer from a cabinet inside.
Just fetch a drawer. Why the urgency?
Jekyll wrote that his life, his honor, his very sanity depended on Lanyon doing this. He instructed Lanyon to take the drawer back to his own consulting rooms and wait alone for a messenger who would arrive precisely at midnight.
Sounds completely mad. Did Lanyon do it?
He did. Despite thinking Jekyll must be insane, the sheer desperation in the letter convinced him something serious was afoot. So he went, found the drawer Jekyll described.
What was in it?
Several things. Some powders, carefully measured packets of a white crystalline salt, a phial containing a blood-red liquor with a pungent smell, and a small notebook.
A notebook. Jekyll's lab notes.
Seems like it. Lanyon glanced through it. Just a list of dates covering years. Against many entries, just brief comments like double or total failure, cryptic records of experiments, nothing that explained the current crisis.
So Lanyon takes the drawer back home and waits.
Waits alone in his consulting room. Midnight strikes. And right on cue, there's a knock at the door.
The messenger arrives.
The messenger arrives, and Lanyon immediately recognizes him as someone unusual, small, strangely dressed in clothes far too big for him. He had this odd mix of muscular activity and apparent physical weakness.
It's Hyde, isn't it?
It's Hyde. Lanyon doesn't know the name yet, but he feels an instant, inexplicable revulsion. A disgustful curiosity, he calls it. A cold chill just from being near him. Hyde is incredibly agitated, almost feverish with impatience, demanding the drawer.
Lanyon gives it to him.
Yes, Hyde lunges for it. Then he asks for a graduated glass measure. Lanyon provides one. And then Lanyon watches, fascinated and repulsed, as Hyde prepares a mixture.
The transformation potion.
The potion. Hyde carefully measures some of the red liquid, adds a precise amount of the white salt. The mixture starts to fizz, smoke, change color from red to purple, finally settling into a watery green.
And Hyde is about to drink it, but he pauses.
He pauses, looks at Lanyon with his strange smile, and he offers Lanyon a choice. He says basically, you can leave now, go back to your safe, conventional life and scientific ignorance. Or you can stay and witness something incredible, a prodigy that will shatter your view of the world.
He challenges Lanyon's material views, taunts him about sticking to traditional science.
Exactly. He frames it as a chance to see a new province of knowledge, to push past the boundaries Lanyon always defended. It's a direct challenge to their old scientific argument.
Does Lanyon accept?
He does. Curiosity, maybe professional pride, overcomes his fear. He tells Hyde to proceed.
And then the transformation.
Hyde drains the green liquid in one gulp. Then comes the reaction. A cry, he reels, clutches his throat, staggers. His whole body seems to swell. His face becomes suddenly black. Features seem to melt and alter. Lanyon hears a sound like bones grinding.
Horrifying.
Utterly. And then before Lanyon's very eyes, the figure changes completely. It grows taller, fills out. The clothes that were huge on Hyde now fit perfectly. And standing there, pale and shaken but undeniably himself, is Dr. Henry Jekyll.
Jekyll was Hyde.
Jekyll was Hyde. Lanyon realizes the horrifying truth. The creature who came to his house, the creature Lanyon felt such instinctive loathing for, was Jekyll himself in another form. And Jekyll then apparently confessed everything to Lanyon, including the Carew murder.
No wonder Lanyon was never the same. The shock, seeing that, hearing that, it would break anyone.
It broke Lanyon completely. His scientific worldview, his moral compass, everything was shattered. He writes that what he saw and heard that night sickened his soul. He understood then that the man hunted as Carew's murderer was Jekyll. And that knowledge, that horror, led directly to his rapid decline and death.
So Lanyon's narrative confirms the unbelievable. Jekyll and Hyde are the same person. Now, Utterson reads Jekyll's own account, his confession. What was Jekyll's motive? Why did he do all this?
It goes back to his youth, apparently. Jekyll explains he was born into a wealthy, respectable family, had high aspirations, but he also had a secret side, a capacity for, well, pleasures, as he puts it, that were undignified and clashed with his public image.
So a hypocrite, basically, living a double life.
He calls it a profound duplicity of life. And this constant struggle, this feeling of being torn between his good side and his hidden desires, led him to a radical scientific idea.
The idea that man isn't one person, but two.
Exactly. Man is not truly one, but truly two. He became obsessed with the idea of separating these two natures, not just for himself, but as a scientific principle. He dreamed of isolating the good and evil parts of the human psyche.
Why? What was the goal?
He thought if he could house the evil side in a separate body, then the good side, his original self, Jekyll, could live freely, pursue knowledge and virtue without being dragged down or shamed by the unjust twin. The evil side would bear all the guilt. It was a search for moral peace through separation.
A way to sin without consequence, almost.
That seems to be part of it, though he frames it more idealistically. He pursued studies into mystic and the transcendental, the stuff Lanyon hated. He experimented for years, looking for a drug that could change his physical form to match the lower elements in his soul.
And eventually he found it, the salt in the red liquid.
Yes. After many failures, he finally compounded a potion. He hesitated for a long time, knowing the risks. But one night, he took the plunge. He drank it.
What was the first transformation like, from his perspective?
Agony at first, racking pangs, grinding in the bones, nausea, a horrible physical ordeal. But then, almost immediately after, this incredible feeling of lightness, of youthfulness, of recklessness, a feeling of being free, unburdened by conscience.
And he knew instantly that he was different, smaller, more wicked.
Instantly. He felt tenfold more wicked. He realized he was physically smaller and younger as Hyde, and theorized it was because his evil side had been less exercised, less developed over his life than his good side.
Did he feel guilty? Repulsed by what he'd become?
No. And this is key. He looked in the mirror at Hyde's face and felt no repugnance, rather of a leap of welcome. He saw Hyde as natural, as representing a part of himself. He believed Hyde was pure evil, unmixed with any good.
And he thought that purity of evil was why everyone else hated Hyde on sight?
That was his theory, that normal humans are a mix, commingled out of good and evil, and the sight of something purely evil, without that redeeming mix, was inherently unnatural and repulsive to the human soul.
So he had a separate identity. How did he use it?
Initially, carefully. He set up the house in Soho, gave Hyde a different backstory, a separate bank account. Hyde became his impenetrable mantle, allowing Jekyll to secretly indulge those undignified pleasures without risking his reputation.
But it didn't stay undignified, did it? It got worse.
Quickly, Jekyll admits the pleasures soon turned monstrous. He mentions the incident with the child, the trampling, but he rationalized it. He told himself it was Hyde, after all, and Hyde alone that was guilty. Jekyll felt he was morally separate, blameless.
A dangerous delusion. He thought he could control it.
He thought he was in complete control, taking the potion to become Hyde, another dose to return to Jekyll. But then, the balance started to shift.
The spontaneous transformations.
Yes, the critical turning point. He woke up one morning as Hyde without having taken the potion the night before. He saw Hyde's lean, corded, knuckly hand on the bedsheet and knew with horror that Hyde was gaining strength, becoming independent.
The addiction was setting in, the evil side was taking over.
Exactly. From then on, it became harder and harder to turn back into Jekyll. He needed larger doses, taken more frequently. Hyde fought against returning to the cage of Jekyll's form. Jekyll realized he was losing control. Hyde was becoming the dominant personality.
And this leads towards the Carew murder.
Yes. Jekyll tried to resist. After the spontaneous transformation, he genuinely tried to choose his better self, avoided the potion for 2 whole months, lived virtuously, like Utterson observed.
But the craving returned.
The throes and longings for Hyde's freedom became unbearable. He finally gave in, took the potion again, but Hyde had been caged for too long. He came out raging, full of pent-up energy and malice.
And encountered Sir Danvers Carew.
Encountered Carew, felt a tempest of impatience at the old man's politeness, and unleashed that ape-like fury. The murder horrified Jekyll, but is committed by Hyde in his full, uncontrolled state.
After the murder, Jekyll must have been desperate to suppress Hyde for good.
He was terrified. He destroyed the key to the laboratory's street door, determined never to become Hyde again. But it was too late. The spontaneous transformation started happening more often, especially when he was weak or asleep. Hyde would take over without the drug.
And Hyde hated Jekyll by this point too, right?
Fiercely, Jekyll describes Hyde's ape-like tricks when he'd briefly gained control, scribbling blasphemies in Jekyll's books, burning letters, destroying a portrait of Jekyll's father. Hyde resented being trapped within Jekyll, feared the gallows, and hated Jekyll's weakness.
So Jekyll is trapped, transforming against his will. What was the final nail in the coffin?
He ran out of the crucial ingredient. The original batch of salt he'd bought years ago finally ran out. He sent Poole for more, but the new supplies, though chemically identical according to the pharmacists, didn't work. The transformation failed, or was incomplete.
The impurity.
He realized too late that the original salt must have contained some unknown impurity that was essential for the potion's success, and he had no way to identify or replicate it. The pure chemical was useless.
So he was stuck. Running out of the old salt meant...
It meant he was doomed. He used the last dregs of the original powder to manage a few more transformations back to Jekyll, allowing him time to write his confession and arrange his affairs, like changing the will. But he knew that soon the last dose would wear off, and he would transform into Hyde permanently.
With no way back.
No way back. Hyde would be trapped, hunted, likely facing the scaffold for Carew's murder, or driven to suicide out of sheer terror. Jekyll concludes his statement knowing that as he finishes writing, his time as Jekyll is over. "This is my true hour of death," he writes, "and what is to follow concerns another than myself." The monster he created would face the final consequences. #tag outro.
So that's the full story. Utterson finally understands everything. It wasn't a simple case of murder or blackmail. It was, well, a self-inflicted spiritual catastrophe.
Completely. Jekyll's experiment, his attempt to separate good and evil, didn't lead to peace. It led to utter destruction. He unleashed Hyde, thinking he could control him, observe him like a separate entity, but instead Hyde consumed him.
The real horror wasn't just Hyde's evil, was it? It was how easily Jekyll, the good part, rationalized it, excused it, and ultimately became enslaved by the very thing he created, believing he was somehow immune.
That's the core tragedy. The failure of compartmentalization. He thought he could neatly divide himself, but he just opened the door to his own worst impulses and couldn't shut it again.
And it leaves us with a really provocative thought, doesn't it, based on Jekyll's own final reflections.
It does. Jekyll believed Hyde was pure evil, and that this purity, this lack of any redeeming mixture, was what made him so universally repellent, almost inhuman.
So the question for you listening is this. If Hyde was only the evil part of Jekyll, extracted and made manifest, what does that instinctive, universal disgust he provoked tell us about ourselves? About normal people, who Jekyll says are all commingled out of good and evil?
Yeah, what does that visceral rejection of pure evil suggest about our own makeup? Maybe that complex duality, that mix of light and dark within us, isn't a flaw to be corrected, but is actually the very essence of what makes us human. And perhaps the truly terrifying thing is the idea of losing that balance, becoming singular like Hyde. Something to think about.